Princess Valera of the Crythian Empire stood in the big room of the Galactic Council. Her silver skin shone under the lights. She was stunning, strong, and very angry. People from 1,000 worlds stood around her and watched in silence. They had all heard what she said about people, and now they were waiting to see what would happen next. Vermin with tools, she had called them just an hour before. Apes that have barely evolved and accidentally traveled through space. She had said, in all seriousness, that all humans should be taken out of their colonies and put to work in waste processing plants all over the galaxy. She thought, what else are they good for? The leader of the council, who was an ancient being whose species had been traveling the stars for millions of years, looked down at Valera with what might have been disappointment. His voice echoed through the room, calm but firm. Princess Valera, what you say has consequences. You insulted an entire race for no reason. You have shown that you don't care about people you think are below you. So, the council has made a decision about your punishment. For eyes on Valera narrowed. Punishment? For her? She was a queen. Her family had been in charge of the Crythian Empire for 10,000 years. Nobody punished a princess. You will serve on a human ship for 1 standard year, the leader of the council said. You will work under their supervision, following their rules and doing whatever tasks they give you. You will learn what it means to be in the shoes of the people you have insulted. Whispers filled the room. The emperor, who was Valera's father, stood up from his chair, his face twisted in anger. But the council's choice was final. There would be no appeal or negotiation. Valera would have to go to the humans or her empire would be in big trouble. Valera laughed. The sound that filled the room was cold and mocking. Fine, she said, her voice full of anger. I'll go play with the people. Within a week I'll have them cleaning my floors. Everyone will see how silly this punishment is when they beg to serve me well. 3 days later, Valera was on the docking platform of mining station Erebus 7, a human outpost on the edge of known space. The station wasn't pretty, it was made of gray metal and had a practical design instead of an artistic one. The air and everything else smelled like oil. She had sent her royal guards away. She was no longer wearing her nice clothes. Instead, she was wearing a plain gray uniform. She was alone, and the people around her were too busy with their own work to look at her. A man walked out of a door that slid open with a hiss. Valera had no idea what he would be like. She had thought that maybe a military officer or a station commander would show her the proper respect for her status. She got Tom Bradley instead. Tom was in his 50s. His hair was gray and stuck up in strange ways, and he had laugh lines around his eyes. He was wearing a jumpsuit that had seen better days. It was stained with grease and what looked like dried cleaning solution. He had a mop bucket in one hand. On the other hand, a toolbox that was old and made noise when he walked. He looked like what he was, a janitor who had been doing this job for a long time. But Valera was most surprised by his smile. It was a real, friendly smile like the one you give a friend you haven't seen in a while. He walked right up to her, put down his bucket and held out his hand. Welcome aboard, Valera, he said in a friendly, casual way. Hi, I'm Tom Bradley. You will be working with me for the next year. I hope you don't mind getting your hands dirty. Valera looked at his outstretched hand as if it were a poisonous animal. His hand was rough and calloused from years of hard work. His knuckles had old scars on them, and his thumb had what looked like a new cut on it. This was the hand of a worker, someone who worked at the station and did the lowest jobs. And he wanted her to shake it. Other workers at the station had stopped to watch. The news of the princess's punishment had spread all over the galaxy. Everyone was aware that she was here. Everyone knew that this was meant to be her shame. They were curious about how she would act when she was put under the care of a janitor. Valera's thoughts were racing. There had to be some kind of test going on. The people of the Crythian Empire couldn't really expect her, a princess, to take orders from this maintenance worker. Maybe this Tom Bradley was being nice right now, but soon he would show his true colors. He would make her bow down to him, or he would make her do the most humiliating things possible as punishment for what she said about his people. Tom just stood there, hand out, and his smile never changed. He didn't seem angry or out for revenge. He didn't even seem to care that she was a queen. He probably looked at her the same way he looked at everyone else, like she was just another person he was meeting for the first time. I don't do manual labor, Valera finally said, her voice cold. I am Princess Valera, the daughter of Emperor Christoph and the next in line for the Crythian throne. There must have been a mistake. Tom's smile stayed the same, but his eyes changed. Maybe understanding. Or maybe just some time. He slowly lowered his hand. No mistake, he said softly. The council sent a message last week. For the next year, you will be in charge of maintenance under my watchful eye. It's a good job, Valera. Nothing to be ashamed of. There is no reason to be ashamed. The words hit Valera like a punch in the stomach. This person really thought that. He really thought that cleaning toilets and pushing a mop were honorable jobs, just like ruling an empire or commanding fleets. Valera said, "I won't do it. I won't do it." Tom nodded as if he had seen this coming. He said, "That's your choice. But the council's orders are clear. You have to either work with me or break the rules of your punishment. I hear that the results of that are pretty bad." He was right, and Valera knew it. If she didn't agree, the council would punish her whole empire. Trade routes would be cut off. Treaties between allies would end. Her father would lose power, and it would be her fault. She was stuck. Tom grabbed his bucket again. "Let me tell you," he said. "Why don't you just follow me around all day? Look at what I do. We can talk about what jobs you're okay with starting tomorrow. Don't worry. Does that sound fair?" It wasn't right. This wasn't fair at all. But Valera nodded anyway because she didn't have a choice. Tom walked away, thinking Valera would follow him. She took one last look at the docking platform. The galaxy was watching from somewhere out there. Her friends, enemies, and family were all waiting for the proud princess to fall. She took a deep breath and followed the janitor into the station's hallways. This was the start of her humiliation. Valera woke up on her first real day on mining station Erebus 7 expecting the worst. She had spent the whole night thinking about all the awful, embarrassing things Tom would make her do. Maybe she scrubbed toilets with her bare hands, cleaning up trash cans, crawling through dirty ventilation shafts while other workers made fun of the fallen princess. She had mentally gotten ready for humiliation, ridicule, and revenge. Tom instead met her at the maintenance office with 2 cups of coffee and a datapad. "Morning," he said cheerfully as he handed her one of the cups. "Hope you like it black. We only have the basics here. No fancy flavors or anything." Valera looked at the cup with suspicion. Was it tainted? A test of some kind? She had never had coffee made by people before. In Crithian culture, sharing drinks was a sign of friendship and equality. Tom probably didn't mean it that way. Tom sat down and took a sip of his own coffee. "Okay, before we start doing any real work, I thought I should show you what we're really in charge of here. You know what? You can't do a job right if you don't know why you're doing it." He tapped the datapad, and a bunch of complicated diagrams appeared on the screen. Valera knew right away that they were technical schematics, the kind that engineers and system maintainers use. But these machines weren't easy to use. These were the systems that kept the whole station alive. Tom pointed to a part of the diagram and said, "These are the air recyclers. The station always has 12 of them running, and there are 4 backups in case something goes wrong. They change the carbon dioxide we breathe out back into oxygen. Isn't that cool?" Despite herself, Valera leaned in closer. The technology was actually very advanced, more so than she had thought humans would be able to do. The recyclers used both chemical filters and biological algae tanks, which made a closed-loop system that could, in theory, run forever as long as it was kept in good shape. Tom's voice got serious as he said, "If even half of these fail, everyone on this station has about 6 hours before the air becomes unbreathable. We need to make sure that never happens." He swiped to a different diagram. "This is the system that cleans the water. This station uses, filters, and reuses every drop of water. We drink it, shower in it, and use it to cool down the mining equipment. The filters get rid of dirt, bacteria, and anything else that could make people sick. We have about 3 days before disease starts to spread if these don't work." Valera's understanding changed in some way. She thought Tom's job was to clean up messes, which is something anyone could do. But this was different. This was being responsible. Real accountability. The kind where people died because of mistakes. Tom spent the next 3 hours showing her how to use all of the systems he was in charge of keeping up. The waste management processors that stopped toxic buildup. The temperature controls that kept the station from freezing in space. The backup power generators that would turn on if the main reactor broke down. Every system was very important. They all needed knowledge, skill, and constant care. "So you see," Tom said, finally putting down the datapad, "the title they give me is Janitor. But in reality, I'm a technician for life support, an emergency repair expert, and a dozen other things. The bucket and mop? That's just how things are at work." Valera sat quietly, taking in everything she had just learned. She thought people would make fun of her and give her the worst jobs possible as punishment for her insults. Tom was teaching her, though. He was really teaching her, like he would train a new employee. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why don't you punish me?" Tom really seemed confused. "Punishing you? What do you mean?" Valera said, her voice rising with anger. "I insulted your whole species. I called you a pest. I said that people should be moved to waste processing. And now you're here teaching me and treating me like a person? Tom was done. He smiled the same warm smile as yesterday. Valera, you're here to learn. That's what the council said, right? You should spend a year working with people and learning about what we do. How will that happen if I just make you unhappy the whole time? But I deserve to be punished, Valera said. I was mean. I was wrong, Tom said with a shrug. Maybe you were. But holding on to anger doesn't help. Do you want to make up for what you said? Then learn. Learn for real. Know why every job is important and why everyone deserves respect no matter what they do. That sounds better than me yelling at you while you scrub floors. He got up and stretched. I could use the help too. The last guy they sent me quit after 2 weeks. Said that the job was too hard. He smiled. Do you think a Crithian princess can do what a human maintenance worker can't? Valera realized it was going to be hard. Not a mean one but a real one. Tom was betting that she would really try and put in the work instead of just doing her time and leaving. Tom took a plain sandwich out of his lunchbox around noon. Are you hungry? He asked. I have one more. It's not fancy, just turkey and cheese, but it fills you up. Valera looked at the sandwich that was offered. Sharing food was very important in Crithian culture. It meant that person was like family to you, someone you trusted. Did Tom know this? Was he trying to say something? She took the sandwich slowly and bit into it. It was plain and simple, nothing like the fancy meal she was used to. Tell me about your homeworld, Tom said between bites. But it was food that was honestly shared. How is it on Crithia? I haven't been there myself, but I've heard that the cities are amazing. And just like that, they were talking. Not questioning, not making fun of. Two people are just talking over lunch. Tom asked real questions about her culture, her family, and what it was like to grow up as a royal. He really listened when she answered, and sometimes he even asked follow-up questions that showed he was interested. Valera ended up talking more than she had planned. She told him about the crystal palaces, the old ways of her people, and the heavy burden of being born into a position of power. Tom nodded along and told his own stories about growing up in a small town on Earth and choosing to work in space so he could see the stars. When their lunch break was over, Valera was shocked to find out that she had liked it. The talking, the teaching, everything. This wasn't a punishment. This was a whole different thing. Valera turned on her private communication device and called her father that night, when she was alone in her small room. The Emperor's face appeared on the screen and he looked serious. Daughter, he said in a formal tone. How is your punishment going? It's strange, father, Valera said. Tom Bradley, the person. I didn't expect him to be like this. He is showing me how the station works. He gave me some of his food. He treats me with respect that I don't deserve. Her father's face turned dark. Be careful, Valera. This is why we are afraid of them. Are you afraid of them? But he's just a worker who keeps things running. No, her father said in a low voice. He's a person. And people are dangerous because they don't understand hierarchy the way we do. They don't know where they fit into the galactic order, and even worse, they don't think anyone else does either. They think a princess and a janitor can be the same. They believe that respect is something everyone should get by default, not something you earn by being born or doing something great. He moved closer to the screen. That belief makes them hard to predict, Valera. It makes them treat everyone the same, which sounds nice until you realize that they won't automatically listen to people who are higher up than them. They will test you. They'll want you to prove yourself. And they won't care about your titles or your bloodline if you fail. She thought about Tom's smile, how confident he was, and how he talked to her like she was just another person. Is that really so scary? She asked. For a long time, her father didn't say anything. Yes, he finally said. Because if everyone thought the same way that people do, our whole society would fall apart. Power would be useless. Title would mean nothing. Your actions would be the only thing that mattered. When the call was over, Valera lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Tom would teach her more the next day. He would treat her with the same respect and dignity, and all he wanted in return was for her to do her best. And for the first time in her life, Valera thought that maybe, just maybe, that was what she needed. It had been 3 months since Valera got to mining station Erebus 7, and she had gotten used to a routine she never thought she could have. She met Tom at the maintenance office every morning. She learned something new every day about how to keep the station running. She knew where every major system was when it needed maintenance, and now she could even do basic repairs on her own. She thought she knew what Tom was doing. She thought she knew what it meant to work as a maintenance worker on a human station. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, everything fell apart. When the alarms went off, Valera was in the lower equipment bay checking the pressure readings on the secondary water tanks. Not the soft beeps that warned of small problems. These were the loud, urgent alarms that told people something bad had happened. Red emergency lights lit up the hallways, and an automated announcement system started up with a voice that was way too calm for what it was saying. Critical failure in the first oxygen processing unit. All staff should go to their emergency stations. Estimated time left to breathe, 6 hours. Valera's blood turned cold. 6 hours. She had learned enough to understand what that meant. There were 1,200 people on the station. If the main oxygen processor went down, the backup systems would have a hard time keeping up with demand. They might be able to make the air last a little longer, but not by much. She also knew for sure that the nearest supply ship was at least 8 hours away. They were going to run out of air before help got there. People were already freaking out. Valera could hear people yelling and running in different directions in the hallways above her. Some workers were on their way to the emergency pods, where they would be safe. Others were stuck where they were, not knowing what to do. The station commander's voice came over the intercom, trying to keep things calm, but Valera could hear the fear in his voice. Her heart raced as she ran toward the maintenance office. Tom would know what to do. Tom always knew what to do. She found him in the main equipment room, staring at a huge piece of machinery that was dark and quiet. The main oxygen processor was as big as a small building. It was made up of a lot of filters, chemical converters, and biological parts that changed carbon dioxide back into air that people could breathe. And now it was dead. Tom, Valera said, trying to keep her voice steady. When will the replacement part get here? Tom didn't look away from the machine. His jaw was tight and his eyes were on the prize. 8 hours. If they run into problems, it could be 9. But we only have 6 hours of air. I know. There were other maintenance workers around them, all of whom were looking at Tom with desperate hope. Rita, the station's chief engineer, had been working there for 30 years and shook her head sadly. Rita said, "It can't be fixed. The main converter unit is totally broken. We would have to replace the whole core assembly, but we don't have the parts. I have already told non-essential staff to leave." Tom walked slowly around the huge processor, running his hand along its surface. Tom said quietly, "Evacuation won't work." Valera could see him thinking, calculating, and looking at options that no one else could see. "We have 1,200 people and only enough pods for 800 of them. And if we send people out in space suits, they'll run out of air before the rescue ships get there. What do we do now?" Rita asked, her voice cracking a little. Tom picked up his toolbox, which was the same old metal box he always carried with him. "We think outside the box." He quickly walked toward the storage areas. Along with 2 other workers, Valera followed him without thinking. As he walked, Tom pulled up schematics on his datapad and muttered to himself. "The converter unit is broken, but the filtration system still works," he said, more to himself than to anyone else. "And the biological tanks are still working. We don't have to fix everything. We just need to get around the broken parts and make enough oxygen to keep people alive until help comes." He stopped in front of a storage room and began to take out tools. Old parts, spare parts from other machines, and things that looked like they hadn't been used in years. Tom grabbed an industrial air compressor, 3 separate filtration units from the water system, and what looked like parts from a mining drill. Valera was confused. "Tom, these parts don't work with the oxygen processor," Rita said, clearly thinking Tom had gone crazy under the pressure. "Not usually, no," Tom said. He was already carrying a lot of equipment back to the processing room. "But we're not trying to fix it the right way. We're making a way around it." Valera watched Tom work for the next 2 hours with a focus she had never seen before. He took apart 3 different machines, taking out parts and looking at them. He used the wrong size pipes to connect the industrial compressor to the oxygen processor's filtration system. To fill in the gaps, he used industrial glue and what he called emergency repair tape. "This is crazy," one of the workers said under his breath. "None of these parts are meant to work together." "That's why it might really work," Tom said, not stopping. His hands moved with complete confidence as he connected wires, changed the flow of electricity, and built something that looked like a mechanical nightmare but somehow made sense. Without being asked, Valera found herself helping. She gave Tom tools before he asked for them, held parts in place while he secured them, and double-checked connections based on everything he had taught her over the past 3 months. Now she knew what he was up to. He was building a temporary bypass system that used the compressor to push air through the filters that were still working and into the biological tanks that could turn it into oxygen. It was rough, not very useful, and definitely not meant to work. But it was their only chance. "The pressure ratios are all wrong," Rita said when she saw what Tom had made. Turning this on could make it blow up. Tom said, "We all die if I don't turn it on." His hands were moving faster and sweat was dripping down his face. "I'll take the chance of an explosion." Her heart raced as she watched him connect the last wires. The whole station was quiet. Now everyone knew what was going on. Everyone knew that Tom Bradley, the janitor, was trying to do something impossible to save their lives. "How do you know this will work?" Valera asked in a low voice. Tom stopped, his hand on the switch. When he looked at her, she saw real fear in his eyes for the first time. But there was something else behind that fear. Determination. Being stubborn. The absolute refusal to give up even when things looked bad. "I don't," Tom said honestly. "This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. It shouldn't work according to the engineering specs. The pressure ratios are wrong, the parts don't fit together, and I'm basically using tape and hope to hold this whole thing together." "Why are we doing it then?" Tom smiled a little. "Because giving up makes sure it won't work. At least this gives us a chance." He turned on the switch. Nothing happened for 3 seconds. Then the makeshift system came to life with a sound like a hurt animal. The compressor screamed, the pipes shook violently, and the whole thing shook like it was going to fall apart. Rita grabbed Valera and pulled her back, both of them thinking there would be an explosion. But the system worked. The pipes stopped making noise. The compressor settled into a rough, uneven rhythm that sounded bad but was actually working. And the oxygen levels in the station stopped going down on the screens. They weren't going up very much, but they had stopped going down. Tom's impossible invention was really making air that people could breathe. People in the room cheered. Some of the workers cried with relief as they hugged each other. The intercom confirmed what everyone could see on their screens. The voice of the station commander. The crisis that was happening right now was over. They would have enough air to last until the new parts came. Rita couldn't believe what Tom had made. She whispered, "This shouldn't be possible. The math isn't right. Everything about the engineering is wrong. How did you know how to do this?" Tom was tired and leaning against the wall. His jumpsuit was soaked with sweat. "I didn't know. I just wouldn't believe that there wasn't a way out." Valera stood still, her mind racing. Her whole life she had been around the best scientists and engineers in the Crithian Empire. People with advanced degrees, years of experience, and the best technology in the galaxy at their fingertips. But none of them could have done what Tom just did. Because Tom didn't do what he was supposed to do. He didn't care about following the right engineering standards or making sure things worked together. He had thought about the problem, looked at the tools he had, and just wouldn't believe that it was impossible to save everyone. He had changed, made do, and made something that shouldn't exist but did anyway because he needed it. "You're not primitive," Valera said quietly, the words coming out before she could stop them. Tom was confused when he looked at her. "What?" "My people call humans primitive. We say you're lucky because you accidentally found your way into space travel. That you aren't as sophisticated and refined as older species." She pointed to his makeshift oxygen processor. "But you just did something that our best engineers couldn't do. With junk parts and determination you saved 1,200 lives." Tom shrugged, feeling embarrassed by all the attention. "I guess we're just stubborn. People don't like it when someone tells them something can't be done. We hear that and see it as a challenge." At that moment, Valera realized something that shook her to her core. Her empire had been around for thousands of years, had advanced technology and had a lot of resources. But at some point they lost something that people still have. The ability to look at a situation that seems impossible and try anyway. The unwillingness to give up. The crazy, stubborn idea that there was always a way out if you were willing to think outside the box. Valera sat alone in her room that night and cried as the station returned to normal and the new parts were put in. Not because they were scared or sad but because they understood. Everything she had learned about people was wrong. She was wrong about everything she thought made her better than everyone else. Tom Bradley, a simple maintenance worker with a mop and a toolbox, had just taught her more about real strength than living in the palace for her whole life. The attack came out of nowhere at the worst possible time, when the shift was about to end. Half of the station's crew was leaving their jobs, and the other half was coming in to take over. Security was at its worst, people were distracted, and the moment was already full of chaos. The pirates had it all figured out. When the explosions happened, Valera was in the maintenance office going over diagnostic reports. The whole station shook and she was thrown against the wall. Emergency alarms went off, but they weren't the same warnings she had learned about in the past few months. These were not the same. These were alerts for combat. Hostile boarders detected. All staff should go to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Tom's face was serious as he burst through the door. Pirates, he said quickly. They blew through the outer docking bay. Seems like they want the mining tools. On the black market it's worth a lot. More explosions shook the station. Valera could see armored people carrying heavy weapons moving through the hallways on Tom's datapad security feeds. They shot at anything that moved, not caring if they hurt anyone. These people weren't robbers looking for a quiet place to steal. These were raiders who didn't care how many people they killed. We need to leave, Tom said as he started to head toward the emergency routes. Come on. They joined the crowd of workers running toward the escape pods. There were a lot of people in the hallways, some hurt and a lot scared. Kids were crying. A few security guards were trying to keep things in order, but they were having a hard time. The pirates had brought a lot of firepower, military-grade weapons that the station's small security team couldn't match. Valera ran after Tom through the chaos, her mind racing. 3 months ago, she would have insisted on being treated differently and being evacuated first because she was a royal. Now she stayed close to Tom and helped where she could, like helping an injured worker and showing a confused family the way to safety. Frank, the station commander, who was a tough older man, grabbed Tom's arm just as they were about to enter the evacuation area. His voice was desperate and his face was pale. Tom, we have a problem. There are 47 miners stuck in the lower processing levels. The pirates put explosives in the main access corridors. Blew them all the way up. We can't get to those people because the pirates are in the way. Tom quickly pulled up a diagram on his datapad and moved his fingers quickly across the screen. Valera looked behind her and felt her stomach drop. The lower levels were deep inside the station, where the heavy mining equipment processed raw materials. The main hallways were the only way to get in or out. Those 47 people were stuck in what would soon become their tomb without them. The emergency pods down there? Tom asked and Frank shook his head. Already launched. Those were for the people who worked on the processing, but they left before the explosions. The miners were in a different part of the mine doing repairs. They're stuck. There were more explosions at the station. The pirates were putting more explosives in place, probably to blow their way into the storage area for mining equipment. They had about 10 minutes before this whole area turned into a war zone. We have to go, Frank said to Tom, his voice heavy with the weight of command. I can't put more lives at risk to get to them. The evacuation must go on. Tom stared at the diagram, his jaw moving. Valera recognized that look now. She had seen it when he worked on the oxygen processor. Tom was looking for an answer that everyone else thought was impossible. The maintenance tunnels, he said suddenly, pointing at the screen. They run next to the main corridors, but they're a lot smaller. The pirates wouldn't even think about them. We could use them to get to the lower levels. Frank shook his head when he saw the paths Tom was pointing to. Tom, those tunnels are so small that only one person can crawl through them. A few of them haven't been used in years. You'd have to go right past where the pirates are. It's a run for your life. It's a chance, Tom said softly. It's suicide, Frank said again. I can't tell you to do this. Tom was already getting his toolbox, which was the same old metal box he had been using for 20 years. You're not telling me what to do. I'm helping out. I have to take care of this station, and that includes the people who work there. Valera saw him check his supplies and saw him mentally getting ready for something that scared him but that he was going to do anyway because it was the right thing to do. And she knew she couldn't let him go by himself. I'm coming with you, she said, stepping in front of him. Tom was surprised when he saw her. Valera, no. This is way too risky. You need to leave with the rest of the people. I know those tunnels now, Valera said with confidence. You taught me. For the past 3 months, I've been crawling through every maintenance access point on this station. You need someone who knows where everything is and someone to keep an eye on you. Your Highness, I can't let you. Valera reached into her jacket and pulled out something she had kept hidden in her room since she got there. It was a plasma blade, which is a weapon used by Crithian royal guards. Beautiful, deadly, and against the law on most stations. She turned it on, and a blue energy field appeared along the edge of the blade. I'm trained in combat, she said. All Crithian nobles are. Tom, I can fight. And you're going to need that. Tom looked at her, then at the gun and then back at her face. She could see him weighing the pros and cons and figuring out the risks. At last he nodded. Stay close and do what I say. And if things go wrong, you run. Got it? Got it. They moved quickly, staying away from the main evacuation routes and heading toward an access panel that Tom had shown Valera weeks before. It was behind some old storage units and only maintenance workers knew how to get to it. Tom opened it up and saw a dark tunnel that was only 3 feet wide. This is going to be tight, he said. And dark. Stay right behind me. Tom led the way into the tunnel, holding a small flashlight between his teeth. The metal walls were pushing in from all sides, making the space feel small. Valera could hear explosions above them and feel the vibrations through the walls of the tunnel. She had learned a lot of things in her royal training, but crawling through dark maintenance tunnels while pirates attacked the station was not one of them. Tom used his memory to get around, always turning without thinking and always going down. They walked through areas where the air was thick with dust and old grease and the walls were so narrow that Valera had to breathe out completely to get through. Tom had been taking care of the station's hidden skeleton for 20 years. This was his world. They were halfway to where they were going when they heard voices ahead. Tom turned off his flashlight right away and stayed completely still. Valera stopped moving and barely breathed behind him. She could see shadows moving through a vent grate above them. Pirates with a lot of weapons talking about their next target. Tom waited until they were gone before moving on, and then he moved even more slowly. When they came out of the tunnel, they were in a service corridor, and that's when they ran into their first real problem. 3 pirates were putting explosives on a door with their backs to Tom and Valera. Tom looked at Valera and said, "Shut up." But one of the pirates turned around at the wrong time and saw them. He looked shocked and reached for his gun. Valera acted on pure instinct, and her royal combat training took over. She crossed the distance in 2 steps and hit him with her plasma blade, knocking him out and disabling his weapon before he could yell a warning. The other 2 pirates turned around. Tom didn't think twice. He swung his heavy wrench like a club and hit one pirate in the helmet hard enough to knock him out right away. The 3rd pirate was able to raise his weapon, but Valera was already there, using skills she had learned as a child. She took away his weapon, disabled him, and knocked him out in less than 5 seconds. Tom stared at her and breathed heavily. "Don't let me make you mad again." They kept going. They met pirates 2 more times and each time they worked together. It was unlikely that Valera and Tom would work well together, but they did. With just his toolkit and quick thinking, Tom knocked out 2 more raiders. Valera used her sword to knock out 3 more people, making sure they wouldn't follow but not killing them. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, they got to the sealed-off area where the miners were stuck. Tom got right to work on the emergency access panel. Even though he was under a lot of stress, his hands moved quickly and smoothly. When the panel opened, 47 scared miners were huddled together in the processing bay. They couldn't believe that help had really come when they saw Tom and Valera. "We're getting you out," Tom said simply. "Come with us. Be quiet. Get moving." It was a nightmare to lead 47 people through maintenance tunnels that were only meant for one person at a time. Tom went first, showing people the best ways to get around and talking them through the tight spots. Valera stayed at the back to make sure no one fell behind and to look out for any pirates who might find out what they were doing. They crawled through the dark, a long line of people moving through places they had never been before. Some of the miners got hurt, which made the group move more slowly. Some people were freaking out because they were scared of the small spaces. But Tom kept them going, his calm voice echoing through the tunnels and leading them to safety. The fight for the station was still going on above them. Finally, the security forces had set up a defense that pushed the pirates back. But Tom and Valera only thought about their job down in the tunnels, getting these people out alive. When they finally got to the evacuation zone with all 47 miners, the rest of the station's crew cheered. Everyone thought they would fail. Nobody thought it could happen. Later, Valera would find out that the station's security cameras had recorded the whole rescue. Within hours, the video spread across the galaxy. It showed a Crithian princess crawling through dirty maintenance tunnels next to a human janitor, fighting pirates, and saving the lives of regular miners who no one else would risk their own lives for. Tom leaned against a wall and rested while medics checked on the miners who had been rescued and security dealt with the last pirates. Valera sat next to him, her expensive clothes ruined and her royal dignity lost in those dark tunnels. Tom said softly, "You didn't have to come." Valera said, "Yes, I did. You taught me that every life is important. That doing the right thing is more important than being safe or comfortable. How could I not come?" Tom smiled because he was too tired to talk. And Valera remembered that this human janitor had become the most important teacher she had ever had in the last 3 months. The whole galaxy was watching. And what they saw changed everything. The year went by faster than Valera had ever thought it would. 365 days of fixing things, checking systems, doing maintenance work, and having quiet talks over simple lunches. 365 days of learning that people value you for what you do, not who you are. And now, as she stood on the transport ship that would take her back to the Crithian homeworld, Valera realized she didn't want to go. Tom stood on the docking platform with his toolkit in one hand. He looked just like he did the first time they met, gray hair sticking up, a jumpsuit stained with fresh grease, and that warm smile that made everyone feel important. "You did good work," Tom said, shaking his hand one last time. "Very good. The station is going to miss you." This time, Valera took his hand without hesitation. "I learned from the best." "No," Tom said with a small smile. "You just needed someone to show you that all work is good work if it helps others. You worked out the rest on your own." Valera watched through the window of the transport until Tom was just a tiny figure and then nothing at all as it drove away from mining station Erebus 7. But the lessons he taught her stuck with her, like a brand that would stay with her forever. There was a huge celebration when she got back to her home planet, Krithia. Every building had banners hanging from it. People filled the streets, cheering for their princess to come back. The Emperor had said that there would be a week of celebrations before Valera's coronation. She had finished her punishment, served her time, and now she would take her rightful place as the next queen. In the palace, Valera's father hugged her and looked at her closely with all four of his eyes. He said, "You've changed. The year with the humans, it affected you." "Yes," Valera said simply. "But you understand now, don't you? You can see why we need to keep things in order. Why some people are meant to rule and others to serve." Valera didn't say anything. She just smiled and got ready for the coronation. The ceremony took place in the Grand Hall, a huge room made of crystal and light that had seen 10,000 years of Krithian royalty. Every noble family in the empire was there. The galleries were full of ambassadors from many different species. The Galactic Council sent people to speak for them. This was supposed to be a statement. The old order was restored and the princess was put back in her place. Valera wore the traditional coronation robes, which were covered in jewels that cost more than most planets' yearly budgets. Thousands of people watched as she walked down the long ceremonial aisle. She knelt in front of her father's throne, where he was ready to put the crown on her head and make her the official heir. The ceremony was shown live to the whole galaxy. This was a big deal after all. The princess who had been punished by working with humans was now back in charge. A lot of people thought she would give a speech about what she had learned, how to accept her place in the universe, and how to accept the natural order of things. Instead, Valera stood up and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "I refuse the throne," she said in a clear, strong voice. The hall gasped in shock. Her father's face turned white. The nobles who had come together looked at each other in shock and confusion. This had never happened before. In all of Krithian history, no heir had ever turned down the throne. Valera kept going, not paying attention to the chaos around her. "I won't rule an empire that values bloodlines over character. I won't lead a society that looks down on workers and praises people who do nothing but inherit power. I will not wear this crown until our empire understands that honor is not given at birth but earned through service, contribution, and the choices we make every day." He found his voice. "You don't know what you're talking about. The people have filled your head with their crazy ideas." Valera interrupted, "The humans taught me the truth, something she had never done before. They taught me that a janitor who saves lives is worth more than a princess who does nothing. They taught me that everyone, not just people with titles, has dignity. And they taught me that to make real change you have to give up something." She took off the ceremonial robes and let them fall to the floor. She wore simple work clothes underneath like the jumpsuit Tom wore every day for 20 years. "I am founding the Galactic Workers' Alliance," Valera said. "A group that fights for the rights and dignity of all working beings in the galaxy, no matter what species they are or what their social status is. If you think that all honest work deserves respect and that all workers should be treated fairly, I invite you to join me." The broadcast of her speech spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. People on 1,000 worlds saw it within hours. People who worked in maintenance, cleaning, factories, mining and farming were the ones who kept civilization going, but they were often ignored or treated as less than. A princess told them that their work was important. That they were important. The answer came right away and was too much. Workers started to organize on industrial worlds. On stations like Erebus 7, maintenance crews began to ask for better working conditions. Species that had been treated like servants for thousands of years started to speak up and ask why their important work was worth less than the rich nobles who did nothing. The Galactic Council tried to stop the movement. They put pressure on governments to crack down and threatened to punish worlds that let workers organize. But it was too late. The idea had gone too far and too quickly. You couldn't put this back in the box. Back on Earth, reporters flocked to mining station Erebus 7 in droves. They wanted to talk to the person who had changed a princess and somehow started a revolution in the galaxy. They promised Tom Bradley everything: medals, titles, a job as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, and more money than he could ever imagine. Tom met them in the docking bay of the station. He was still in his work clothes and carrying his toolkit. A young, eager reporter pushed a microphone in his face and asked, "Mr. Bradley, how does it feel to know that you've started a movement that is spreading across the whole galaxy? Princess Valera says that you taught her that all work is honorable. What do you want to say to the millions of workers who are now getting together because of what you did?" Tom didn't seem to like all the attention. He moved his toolbox from one hand to the other, making it clear that he wanted to be anywhere but there. He said, "I didn't do anything special. I just showed someone basic respect. That shouldn't be a big deal. That should be normal." "But you've been given amazing honors," another reporter said. "The government of Earth wants to make you an ambassador. The Crithian Empire has given you a noble title. Why have you turned down everything?" Tom looked back at the station and saw one of the maintenance corridors through a window. "Because I need to fix the toilets," he said matter-of-factly. "And there's a new kid starting next week who needs to learn how to do things. Someone needs to show him how to do the job right." The reporters couldn't believe what they saw. This man could have had money, power, and respect, but he chose to stay a janitor. They didn't get it. But millions of workers across the galaxy who saw that interview understood it perfectly. Tom Bradley wasn't special because he wanted to be famous or get praise. He was unique because he really thought that his job was important and that keeping the station running and people safe was worth doing. He didn't need a fancy name to know how valuable he was. The Galactic Workers Alliance went from being just an idea after Valera's announcement to being a real group in the months that followed. She went to many worlds, talked to workers, helped them get organized, and fought for their rights and respect. Noble families were very angry. Governments were in danger. But the movement kept getting bigger because it was based on a simple truth that everyone could understand: all honest work has value. The Emperor of Krithia, Valera's father, finally asked to meet with his daughter in private. There was no ceremony or ritual around their meeting, just the two of them in a small room. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "What did that person do to you? How did a simple maintenance worker get you to throw away everything you were born to be?" Valera smiled, just like Tom did when he was about to say something important. He acted like my title didn't mean anything to him. Just my choices, my actions, and what I do. He taught me that respect isn't something you get from your parents. You get it by how you treat other people and what you decide to do with your life. "But that's crazy," her dad said. "If everyone is equal and birth means nothing, what keeps society together?" Valera said, "The same thing that held together mining station Erebus 7. People working together, each doing their part, and everyone being valued for what they do instead of their status. That turns out to be a much stronger base than a hierarchy based on birth." For a long time, her father didn't say anything. "You really think their way is better?" "I believe," Valera said carefully, "that humans know something we forgot a long time ago. That the commander who gives orders and the janitor who keeps the life support running are both doing important work. Perhaps more important. And treating people according to that truth isn't new. It's just right." Tom Bradley never found out the full extent of what he had started on mining station Erebus 7. He heard news reports about workers moving around the galaxy and saw his name come up from time to time, but he didn't pay much attention to them. He was too busy teaching Danny, a young kid from Earth who reminded Tom a lot of himself when he was that age, how to do maintenance work. Tom showed Danny the life support systems and said, "The most important thing to remember is that every job on this station is important. Cleaning, fixing things, and keeping the systems running that keep everyone alive are all important jobs. That work is very important. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Danny nodded, taking in the lesson in the same way that Valera had done months before. And all over the galaxy, workers in jumpsuits and work clothes stood a little taller in factories, stations, mines, and farms. They learned something that the powerful had tried to keep secret for thousands of years: that their work was honorable, their lives were valuable, and they didn't have to beg for respect from those above them. They deserved it just for being honest people doing honest work. Tom Bradley never wanted to start a revolution. He just cleaned floors, fixed broken systems, and treated everyone with the quiet grace that came naturally to him. He never got why that was thought to be revolutionary. To him it was just being kind. But that's what made it strong. That's what made it go viral. That is what made people who built their power on hierarchy and inherited privilege afraid of humans. Because people didn't just talk about respect and equality. They lived it. They believed it so deeply that someone like Tom couldn't even think of treating people any other way. And once that idea spread through the galaxy, everything would change forever. That's just how people are. They respect other people, value all honest work, and won't accept that someone is less than them because of where they were born or what job they do. And sometimes, that quiet, stubborn goodness makes all the difference.